Well, that's my job to present petitions from the people in my district. But the petition simply asks for the government to partner with the private sector and come up with a solution for cell phones. And in the speeches to the petitions, I've been saying, look, reach out to the private sector and to the people in the area. Maybe they got to pay a little more on their bill. Maybe there needs to be a solution here. Somebody needs to do something, because we shouldn't be having 650 people without cell phone service in their community in Gros Morne National Park. And it's like I'm talking to the wall.
Just describe how you envision a potential public-private partnership to expand cell coverage, because that's the tricky part here. We all know that it's a good idea to hopefully erect the towers and provide the service, but how we get there is really tricky business. How do you view that working?
Well, I would see if the government would reach out and ask for like a request for proposals for a supplier to come in and offer whatever part or parts. Maybe it's the operational part, maybe it's the tower part, like the hardware part, but come to us with a proposal from the private sector. What do you need to make this work in this location? And it may be that we got to charge this much on the bill, and you got to say, well, folks, it's going to cost you an extra, I don't know, $2 or $3 or $4 a month or whatever it happens to be on all your cell phone bills to have this service here to make this fly. You don't expect the private sector to do it and lose money. And maybe it's something that the government, the cost sharing in a triple P and this type of an arrangement in any area where there's a willing consumer, because there's a consumer screaming for the service, and companies are in business to make money, so they're available to extend their coverage, but you can't expect them to do it where they're going to lose money.
I can't imagine. I think you're right. Something's got to be done, but I can't imagine a company getting involved in responding to a tender to say that they're willing to try to do something, which I don't even think they do, is charge more per cell phone usage in one region compared to another, especially when they know that cell phone users are fickle. We could just as easily dump them and move on because there's some shared tower capability in the first place. So I just find it really tricky. I think there's got to be a solution found. I think the government has to play a role. I just cannot for the life of me figure out how it would look.
But I agree with you. The cell phone users may well be fickle, and they're going to go to maybe the lowest cost alternative. But in various places where you go, you pay roaming charges if you use a particular area. You use a tower. If you're in that area and you're using the cell phone service, for example, if I'm driving along the Detroit River in Windsor, if I get picked up on a tower from Detroit, I'm going to be looking at cell phone charges from the U.S. because a mile away, I'm using that cell phone tower. The technology is available. My issue with government is that I can't get them to move to open a single eyeball just to say, look, yes, let's have a look at this and see if it's possible. If it comes back at the end of the day, it's just not feasible, folks, and here's why, that's a different story. But to do absolutely nothing and let these people's pleas fall on deaf ears week after week, month after month, and do absolutely nothing, to me, it's just inexcusable. There's a government role here to get the ball moving forward and then to cost it out and see where we could go.
Yeah, and if we take it from not just the frustration point, if it's to actually expand business opportunity, if it's to accommodate a tourist, it's for safety on travel on the province's roads with access to reaching out to even 911 if you get in a spot of trouble. All those are the right places to start, I think. And I don't dispute your point. I just have a hard time believing that it's going to be anything more than government cutting them some huge slack, whether it be on tax and or free land or to help build a tower, and to be very little need for the companies to want to budge on their standard business model to expand coverage. But I said it off the top, and I think it's true. We do have to do more, and what that looks like and who pays the bill remains to be seen.
The other issue is in high-speed internet, the broadband strategy with the province. There's in my district, when I was elected 3 years ago, there were 18 communities without high-speed internet, and up till recently, we had it down to 5 communities without high-speed internet, and in the Broadband 3 initiative, it's supposed to be all of them have coverage, which I think is a pretty good point. I mean, it's a strong point for government to talk about and to brag about. The trouble is, they're not actually getting the coverage. In one part of my district, in the Bartlett Cove and the Castor River and New Farol, Shoal Cove area, the operator has told the minister, because I've written to the minister back in June to say, look, we have this issue with the broadband coverage in this area. The minister comes back to me with a letter and tells me all the wonderful coverage we got, but we don't actually have it. So there's a disconnect between what the company is actually doing and what they've been paid for, because they have not provided the service in phase 2. But the minister, and I don't dispute that the minister really believed what she was being told by the company, but there's a lack of checking up on these companies to see that they've actually done the job that they were hired to do. I wonder if there are other people in other parts of the province who the minister thinks they've got coverage when in fact they don't have coverage. And there's a gentleman, and bless him, he should keep pushing, because why wouldn't he, in Bartlett's Harbour, who keeps pressing me, and we forward his emails to the minister now so the minister can see it's not just me squawking. The coverage is not there. But I don't know if the company's been paid and they left town, or they told us we should have had this late last fall, we should have had it in March. We had a terrible winter, we couldn't get it done. They came in and put up a tower and provided a little bit of service. And these are these short-range, low-end towers which work fine in small areas, but the work is not done. The people are not getting the service. But the minister believed back in June that the service was already there. And I worked through the department and said, look, I'm not interested in beating up your minister. I want the coverage for my people, but we're getting well past it, and we're months past that date. So why is it that the minister believed that the job was done, if the company told the minister that, and yet the coverage is still not available even today?
And these are all important points and questions that you're posing. My last question, and I guess comment, will be, if that's a big concern to you, and it obviously is, and it's a concern for your constituents, can a solution be a firm commitment and a Liberal policy on the campaign trail? Because it's one thing to question what the minister is willing to do, but if you're poised to sweep in the government, then we need a commitment from the Liberals that you have an actual plan to solve the issue. Do you, and will it be an official part of the platform?
But, Paddy, in the case of these locations in my district, with the government's last announcement, we will have 100% coverage. According to what they've said they've done, they've got the check in hand or it's paid, but in fact, they haven't done it. So what you're asking is, will we go back and say, finish up the work that they say that they had done when they haven't got it done? I think we're going to find a lot of work that this government bragged about that they had done, they never ever did in the first place. We're going to have to go back and take stock and see what kind of a mess we're dealing with. Because if the company says as long ago as last June that the job is done, and the minister thought that, or wrote me in a letter to say this work is done, when I know full well that it's not done, and it's not done 3 months later, then how much is not done that ought to have been done?
And I don't know. And I really have no answer to that, because I have absolutely no earthly idea about what remains undone in that particular problem and or a variety of others, because it's hard to know. Jim, I appreciate your time this morning. It's, these are the things that we need the parties to speak to in firm terms. And if it's, pulling the wool over my eyes as we have 100% coverage when it's not, and we have everyone's service when we don't, then that's another reason why we can mistrust anybody when they promise. It's either fingers crossed in their back pocket or selectioneering. We're all getting very sick of it, but I appreciate your time, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
All the best.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Jim Bennett, Liberal member of the House of Assembly for St. Barbe.